I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. The agenda has been prepared and disseminated in accordance with Board Policy 0166. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those that approve indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. On to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those indicate by saying to approve the consent agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to the informational session. Student, staff, and community recognitions. Let me catch up if I could. And there's nothing in there tonight in that area. The next item on the agenda is administrative reports. Achievement Gap Reduction, Luke Stordahl.
Okay. Is that done? All right. So it says mid-year on there, but this is the end of the year update of the Achievement Gap Reduction Report, or AGR. This is a state mandated that we, as a recipient, Spoon Elementary School as a recipient of AGR funds, need to give the school board a report, an update on progress mid-year and end of year every single year. This would be our third year of being an AGR school, and the state actually just asked, because it's also the third year that AGR has been a thing, the Achievement Gap Reduction and the funding has been a thing, and they just audited, or are auditing, all the schools that are AGR schools and asked for all of our reports from the last 3 years, and so I packaged this one up and shared it with them. So this will be kind of a continuation of reports as in the past. So a little bit of background. Spooner Elementary School receives about $425,000 through AGR funding by being an AGR school. When we became an AGR school, we had the option, the state of Wisconsin sunsetting SAGE, which was a cap on class sizes. We had the option of staying a SAGE school or going AGR. We went AGR because it provides more flexibility or more strategies in order to still be able to secure that access and support for students. The three strategies that AGR allows for a school to use, they can choose one of the three. One would be class size reduction, second would be one-to-one tutoring, and the third would be instructional coaching. We chose the instructional coaching as a strategy to use to reduce that achievement gap. And I'll talk about that in a second, but I do want to note that Spooner Elementary School has set those targets that were the class size targets under SAGE. Even though we moved away from being a SAGE, so we're not state statute bound for those, we still keep those as targets, and our class sizes in kindergarten, first grade, second grade have stayed at or really near those small class size levels. So even though that's not the strategy we use, we still have that as a target. We don't use that, however, because it gives us the flexibility that if a kindergarten class is at 18 and a student moves in at 19, we are not bound by law to hire additional staff to support a class of 19. We know our teachers and we talk to our teachers. They're comfortable having those classes that go a little bit beyond those smaller numbers. So it gives us that flexibility to have the instructional coaching as our strategy. the importance of having instructional coaching as their strategy. And this is the one thing I just wanted to share specifically about the end of the year update, because a lot of this is review from mid-year. But as a building, looking at the needs that we have in our building, the needs, especially in terms of student achievement, and you look at those strategies, like I said, we're already doing the small class sizes. The one-to-one tutoring, as a building right now, our student achievement data suggests that the one-to-one tutoring isn't a good systematic approach to fix that achievement gap, because we have right now too many students that would need that kind of intensive tutoring. So the instructional coaching as a strategy is a sound strategy for us to choose, because by having instructional coaches work with our staff, we know that the thing that really needs to be a focus on the building is the universal instruction, and the instructional coaches can really help the teachers support the universal instruction, which supports all students. So the instructional coaching has really been a big piece of the work in the elementary school, and will be again going forward, and the money through the AGR grant helps support that work. So what instructional coaching looks like in the elementary school? Well, in this past year, it's been provided by Teresa Stanley and Michelle Cobby, the reading specialist and numeracy specialist. Those will be different people in those roles for next year, but the roles will not change, and that instructional coaching will continue to be something that happens in the support of the teachers, even though it'll be different individuals doing it. This can look like a few different ways. They do things like work with grade level teams, or people from the grade level to work on instructional plans, lesson plans. These instructional coaches collaborate with the teams. They look at student assessment data, and they help problem solve with that. They also usually work with families, when either work with families on kind of a large scale. Well, how do we want to communicate academic achievement to families? And then also individually with, if there's students that have unique needs, whether they're advanced learners or learners needing some more intervention, they help work with that piece. And then the biggest piece is, and the biggest part of their role in terms of instructional coaching, is getting in the classrooms and watching the instruction happen, being there, being able to offer feedback, and being a person that teachers can come to with questions. So that's part of their role for instructional coaching. It's not their only role, but that's the role that they fulfill when they wear their instructional coaching hat. Coaching can look like co-planning, so working with a teacher in terms of, all right, here's the lesson objective. How are we gonna do this? Sometimes it can be co-teaching. So we'll come in the classroom for a day. This is the lesson, and I'll try these strategies. You try these strategies. At the end, we can talk about it. And consultation. So that might just be more of kind of, I'm going to sit in the back of the room, note some observations, and talk about it. Really, again, the advantage of the instructional coaching piece is, even though in that teaching you're always surrounded by people, the irony is you're rarely surrounded by your colleagues when you're actually doing the work. It's a very isolating profession, because you're oftentimes by yourself with a lot of responsibility, with a lot of people, but you don't always get feedback because everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. So instructional coaching really allows for that just extra set of eyes and just those conversations to happen. In addition to the formal coaching, having instructional coaches available in the elementary school adds all kinds of assets for teachers, including they can find resources, they can help identify if there's specific concerns with a student, whether it's behaviorally or academically. They can be a sounding board for that, or maybe they've got some strategies that they can suggest. And again, goes to classroom management too, behavior things. So really can look at more broadly the different ways they can support teachers in the classroom. Finally, it's just nice also, besides having that formal instructional coaching piece where they can go into classrooms, just being a sounding board. So, during the school year, it's a really busy time. Everyone has questions, but being that person where a teacher can kind of say, maybe outside of their team, they don't want to bother a teammate right now, but they can kind of go to that person and say, maybe it's something small like, I just don't like the way papers are being handed in my classroom, and getting a different perspective, that kind of thing. Really valuable to have these roles in the school district, and at really important positions going forward. So that's the achievement gap strategies and report for the elementary school.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda are the board reports, which are committee reports. Robert, bring that down.
Thank you for allowing me to make a couple comments. At the last board meeting in May, I made some remarks that led some of you to believe that I was challenging the hiring of our new middle school principal, Michelle, in some way. In no way did I ever intend to undermine the selection process or attempt in any way to challenge or discredit our new middle school principal, Michelle Cobdy, in any way. Ms. Cobdy, if I made you feel that way, and I think I did, I deeply apologize to you for this misunderstanding. I deeply apologize. I supported you as a candidate then, and I do now, and I look forward to your stewardship here at the middle school in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Welcome, Michelle. I didn't get a chance to say that last time, so welcome. The next, I will give my report. I will give several reports today on 4 different meetings that we had. First of all, the Personnel Committee. We had our meeting on June 4th at 4:30 in the afternoon, and we had all of our board members on the committee present, along with some administration. And the items we discussed were consider years of service reconciliation, which we'll speak about tonight. We considered administration compensation model that we will consider tonight, and we considered an increase for district substitute teacher pay, which again, we've made recommendations to bring all those items to the board. Also consider reimbursement for committee membership, and that will be on our agenda tonight also. We adjourned at let's see, when did we adjourn? Oh, we adjourned at 5:16, and our next meeting, just to note, is that the next meeting will be, due to Independence Day, will be on Monday, July 9th. So that is the Personnel Committee report. On 5:15, we had a special meeting, a committee of the whole. There were some minutes taken, and we talked about the discussion action were comments and suggestions on the Spooner High School incident on May 9th. We had 2 parents share some information with us, and they shared their observations and frustrations. We started that meeting at 7 o'clock, and we ended it at 7:14. Then there was another meeting that we had on the 6th of June. And that one, let me just get this information out here. It was an administrator exit interview, and we started that meeting at 4:30 p.m. and there's no action taken, and we ended at 5:41 p.m. And then the last meeting I'm going to report on is on 6/11, June 11th, Monday. And what we did is we had a portion of the meeting in order to do some personnel recommendations, because it's a kind of a timely manner this time of the year that we accept some resignations, and then also we were able to hire some people. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize those people that resigned, or that we recognize their resignation at that meeting, and that was Heather Isaacson. So these have already been approved. Reading interventionist who had 1 year of service with us. Bobby Jean Wilson, the middle school volleyball coach, had 2 years of service. Holly Bacha, high school and middle school choir and social studies, 2 years of service. Teresa Stanley, reading specialist, 5 years of service, 5 years. And Darlene Peterson, food service, 2 years of service. And typically at that meeting we would have, we did do a round of applause for their service, but there was only one community member there to know this, and so we wanted to share that with the rest of you also. So let's give them a round of applause, please. And at the same time, we did some hiring, and so we hired Amanda Miller for our SMS Art STEAM, replacing Mark Canfield. We hired Teresa Pufall, SMS STEM, replacing Kurt Kunkel, and Chandra Stafford, elementary teacher, replacing Aubrey Evans. Oh, and one other one, it's on the next page, so I apologize, Tracy Moffle. If I did wrong with your name, I'll correct it next time. Let me know. Middle school special education long-term agreement, replacing John Eller. So those are the hirings and resignations that we received. We also then had a meeting on the strategic plan. And that was, and our meeting ended at 6:35 p.m. So the next report will be budget and buildings and grounds. Robert?
The meeting commenced in the Media Center room on June 4th at 5:30 p.m. Roll call was taken. All committee members were present. Additionally, we had Karen Sorensen and Paul Johnson present, other administrators, and a couple of community members. We approved the agenda. We amended the agenda to switch around a presentation into the first slot. The first matter we discussed was we considered district funds to support the after-school program. The committee was advised that the school grant was not renewed for the coming year in the amount of $100,000. The school was recently notified of that prior to the committee meeting. The administration came up with a proposal to dip into fund balance on a one-time basis for this coming year in the amount of $75,000, and then to make adjustments thereafter in the program in order to continue operating the after-school program. Hence, the projected school deficit for 18-19 will increase $75,000 to approximately $107,000 from its projection of $32,000. Upon motion and a second, the committee recommended the proposal, and I believe it is on the agenda for board consideration tonight. We then had a brief district financial overview by the business manager, and it was stated that the projected deficit for this year, and the audit will not commence until August, is still projected to be $52,000. Then we had a proposal for a math intervention curriculum. It was made by middle school representatives, including our new principal, Michelle, to implement math intervention at the high school. Many schools have such curriculum, and it was discussed that Spooner has a need for the same. Upon a motion and a second, it was recommended that the district proceed with such a program, and it will be brought before the entire board, I believe, tonight. The district has budgeted for the program, and accordingly, it will not require any deficit spending. The next matter for consideration was review and update of school door safety devices and the status of bids for the replacement of door locks at the high school. Final bids were incoming, and we're not ready for review at that time, but we're hoping to get those in very soon. Also, we discussed the proposal for the district tech department to build a device to secure classroom doors, which was presented several months ago. Though they have no prototype, the tech department stands ready to create a device if we want to do this in-house to help secure our buildings better. So this matter is under review at this time. The next matter we talked about was the consideration of the HVAC maintenance agreement for 2018 through 21. Bids were received and are being reviewed for the board's review. I think that's on the agenda for tonight, and I believe the administration has a recommendation on which contract they would recommend. The next matter we discussed was a CESA 10 school safety grant, and it was an update. We were advised that the application for this grant has been prepared by CESA 10 and the administration and was ready to submit The district indicated it was optimistic about obtaining a sizable grant for school safety in the coming year. So hopefully we can obtain some funds on that. The next matter we considered, it was kind of a long meeting. We considered school board support for Public Service Commission grant for a community broadband system. We received an update by Hugh Miller, who's been working very hard on this idea. The committee was supportive of such a program, and it was agreed to move the matter to the board for further discussion and consideration. What it would entail is a cell tower, another cell tower, possibly on school district property, which would grant many of us in the school and also in the community good broadband. We certainly do need that. The next matter for consideration was the possible establishment of a Fund 46 account, which would be a long-term capital improvement trust fund. The finance manager presented the idea of establishing this as a sort of savings account for future capital projects. The committee concurred, and it was agreed to move this matter to the full board for consideration and approval, and I think that's on the agenda for tonight. The next thing we were given was an update on the broken water main near the middle school, and we were told that work was commencing shortly after our committee met, so it's possibly done by now, but we will get an update on that. The next matter we considered was an update on the middle school roof repair. It was presented that the work was completed. And finally, we looked at the vouchers, and the vouchers were approved on a motion and a second, and we recommended their passage, and that will to the board tonight. The next matter was the next committee meeting. Please write down, if you're interested, that the next meeting is on July 9, not the 4th of July weekend, because it would have, we probably wouldn't get any attendance then, so we moved it to July 9 at 5:30. And that pretty much is everything for me.
All right, thank you, Robert. The next two reports will be done by Paul. Paul, you have the Policy Committee and the Curriculum Committee.
The Policy Committee took place at 6:30 on June 4th. In attendance was myself, Karen Sorensen, and Deb Olson, as well as Dr. Aslin. The first item on the committee was consideration from a parent requesting for athletic participation in lieu of Phi-Ed participation. Under the state statute, there's a statute that gives boards the ability to allow a student's sports activities to be counted towards Phi-Ed, therefore to opt out of Phi-Ed and take additional courses in place of that Phi-Ed. After a lengthy discussion, it was decided that there was no motion, so therefore that request failed without a motion or a second. We had considered a new policy of 5530, which is a drug prevention policy, and that is in your packet to be approved tonight. And what that is more of a policy of definition of what is considered a drug. So it would be like lookalikes are now considered part of our policy. So if something looks like a drug was meant to be a drug, therefore we will treat it as if it was. The next item was to proposal to develop a policy for the sports in lieu of Phi-Ed, which was the same item we talked about earlier, because we did not have a policy. This was a one-time request, and if we were going to grant the request, therefore we would also have to look at possibly doing a policy, so we wouldn't have to keep, as a board, come back and keep on having to readdress the issue. If we were going to approve it, then we should have a policy so it wouldn't have to come in front of the board every single time. That also failed with no motion or a second, so that is not an issue anymore. And we were also given copies of student handbook revisions. That was for information purposes only. There was to be no action on that. And then that was it for that meeting. We adjourned. The curriculum minutes, that was called to order at 4:30 p.m. today on the 18th. Present was myself, Kevin King, and Aaron Bush. The first item on our discussion was a mountain bike curriculum presentation by Ryan McKinney. He has advised that he has secured approximately 10 mountain bikes right now. He would like to implement mountain bike curriculum into his Phi-Ed courses at the middle school. He is in need of approximately 20 additional bikes. He has 10 secured at this time. He would like to, the goal would be to have 30 bikes. He is going to be looking for donations and grants and scholarships. He's talked to multiple businesses as well as people that he knows in the industry, and he feels that he is able to accomplish this. He will be able to accomplish this, and he is asking the curriculum committee to approve that. The curriculum committee did make a motion to advance this to the full board today, so that would be one of the items that we discussed. The other item we discussed today was the consideration of 2 8th grade students which would like to take math courses at the high school. These are middle school students that have taken as much math as offered at the middle school level. They are going into the 8th grade, and they would like to go to the high school now as an 8th grade student to take advanced math courses that we do not offer at the middle school. There was a motion by the committee to advance this to the full board for approval. These 2 students would be transported to and from the school by our own staff. This is similar to a program that was done years ago when the old high school was attached to the middle school. This just hasn't been done since that time, and this is a request that came in, and we did approve that. There was a consideration for K through 12 English Language Arts curriculum that was presented by Dr. Aslin. We each were given an outline of what the curriculum standards should be and measurable standards with each grade. That was approved by the committee to go to the full board in July. So the next month, this board will have an opportunity to go through that. So it's not fresh material, it was just done today. You'll have opportunities to approve that next July meeting. That was passed and carried. There's the next item was a consideration to purchase English Language Arts curriculum. Luke did that presentation for the elementary level, and that would be a new program to work through the full elementary school, and it was discussed by their staff, English staff, and decided that they would like to go along with this. So therefore, the committee once again approved for the consideration for the July full board meeting. The other item was the discussion about the committee as a whole structure. That's something that we spoke about at the last meeting last month. The motion was to advance and approve this to the July full board meeting with implementation starting in October. So we're asking the full board to approve the curriculum as a whole outline starting in October. That would eliminate our individual committee meetings. We would then have one committee as a whole meeting per month, and our intent would be to have it on the same day, the Monday 2 weeks prior to our board meeting. So that would be the first Monday of the month. Then the third Monday of the month would be the full board meeting like we're currently doing now. We would be eliminating the individual committee meetings, and we would like to have committee as a whole with our committee meetings listed in the order that they would appear. Each committee chair would still be responsible for their presentation, but it would be the full board in discussion. It would be the full board to get the presentations that are being done, and it would be the full board to have discussion, and it would then be the full board to make the recommendation to forward it to the general board meeting for final approval. So there still would be time of 2 weeks in between the time that we presented, approved, and then final approval. If it came down to the final approval and people weren't satisfied with 2 weeks was not long enough, they could then just ask to be tabled for another month or ask to go back in front of the committee again for further discussion. There'd be no, it's not mandatory that the board would have to approve it once it was approved at the committee level. So there was a motion and approval to implement that and bring it to the July full board meeting, and our intent would be that it would start in October. That would give us from the time it would actually be approved in July until October. There could be some fine tuning or some individual policy changes necessary to make it work for everybody. And that is the end of it. We were adjourned at 5:40 p.m.
Thank you. And the final committee is Kevin with the School and Community Relations Committee.
School and Community Relations met tonight at 5:45. The first item on our agenda was an update on the alumni initiative, and this is the building of a database and that hopefully our students will be able to make some connections and benefit with in the future here. Kristen Tisser reported that we had 95 responses so far from alumni. We are going to look at possibly having some way to reach out to alumni through the FFA booth. There's some possible literature for them to fill out and submit back so we can gather some more stuff, and we're going to ramp it up more in the fall once school starts. And then next thing on the agenda was a 30, 60, 90-day planning. We discussed the Relay for Life. We've got close to 50 participants. I want to say a big thank you to Sarah Hamilton. She's done a wonderful job working with us so far. We've had a fundraiser at the elementary school that raised $578 and a ticket sale that raised $1,062. Another thing that was discussed was the open house for the high school will be August 29th. And elementary and the middle school open houses will be to be announced yet. And a brief discussion on freshman first contact day in August. Then last thing we had on our agenda was legislative updates. And it was noted that DPI has posted a list of 84 schools that have registered to participate in the Special Needs Scholarship Program for the 2018-19 school year. The list includes 56 schools that will be new to the program. The application period begins in July 1st. For the 2018-19 school year, participating schools will receive $12,424 per full-time equivalent student for full scholarship students. Returning students who no longer have a disability may receive a partial scholarship, which is equal to the aid paid for the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program. Interesting note on it, though, is in the 2017-18 school year, 28 private schools and 244 full-time students participated in the Special Needs Scholarship Program, affecting 25 public school districts, which saw their state aid reduced by a collective total of just under $3 million. This program is estimated to triple in scope next year, roughly 750 students at an estimated cost of over $9 million. Interesting note on these schools, too, is only 2 of them are north of Highway 29. They're all south, for the most part. Then Department of Justice announced the awarding of school safety grants to 20 school districts in private schools, totaling $1.3 million. We are in the process of pursuing that at our district here. The only one I saw on the list that was somewhat close was St. Joe's and Rice Lake received $20,000. The Blue Ribbon Commission on School Funding held their last hearing on June 4th. I was not able to attend. Dr. Aslan was able to attend and testify on behalf of our district. I did submit written testimony on behalf of our district. They will be meeting again in July to start making recommendations in the recommendation process. So cross your fingers. That's all I had for updates, and our meeting ended at 6:10 tonight.
Yeah, thank you. You were out of there very early tonight.
Yep.
Good job. All right, thank you for all those reports. The next item on the agenda is the community comments. Per Wisconsin Statute 19.83 Parent 2 and 19.84 Parent 2, the board will allow public comments. The community comment session will be limited to 45 minutes. The time for each individual will be divided by the number of people signed up for community comments. Thank you. Tonight we have one person signed up for comments, so you have 45 minutes. Diane Parker, Trigo Elementary CLC program.
I promise not to take 45.
Thank you very much.
So, I'm Diane Parker. I work at the elementary school in the library.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is it on?
It's going to the camera.
So, I've been after-school leader at the elementary ever since the program began. And as a long-term participant, I think it's a great program and that it provides growth opportunities for our students. My own experience as a 4-H club leader enabled us to start a 4-H club at the school. And then through that club, we were able to establish a school garden. Learning opportunities abound for students in areas they might not get in day school. I've worked with kids in the computer lab, learning how to make a spreadsheet to graph the weather on their birthday every year since they were born. We've done coding and created presentations about their hobbies and their interests. And that's the end of what I wrote. Dozens of people from the community have come and worked with our students and provided them wonderful opportunities. And I just want to say that it is a great program, and I hope that you are able to continue to support it.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to section 5, discussion and action, personnel recommendations.
You have one resignation, Mary Ellen Rogers, elementary paraprofessional, 10 years of service.
Is there a motion to accept the resignation of Mary Ellen Rogers?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's recognize Mary Ellen Rogers for her 10 years of service. And then on to the hiring.
You have 3 recommendations for hiring tonight. Dan Rosenbush, high school head girls basketball coach, replacing Andy Rappel. Peter Hopke, Spooner Elementary School principal, replacing Luke Stordahl. Janine Richards, high school media center paraprofessional, replacing Andrea Burton.
Is there a motion for these hirings?
I make a motion that we accept these hirings.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve these hirings. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Peter, would you stand up, please? I'd like to introduce our new elementary principal. Thank you very much. Welcome to the district. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of donations.
You have a donation from the Schaefer family to the Spooner High School Choir Department, a digital keyboard with an approximate value of $300 to $500.
Is there a motion to accept this donation?
Motion?
Second.
Motion has been made by Robert and seconded by Kevin. I believe he got in first. All those Any discussion? Hearing none, all those indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah, thank you to the Schaefer family for that. There are no fundraiser requests this month, and there are no facility usage requests.
We actually have one facility use request for overnight usage of the buildings.
Did I miss? I apologize.
There's not a memo for it. Mr. Milton will provide the information.
All righty, so this is last minute. On behalf of the wrestling club, or wrestling, they're requesting to do a camp like they did last year, overnight. The dates would be July 13th to the 14th. It's called the Silverback Wrestling Camp. There will be Caleb Melton, the head coach, will be part of that camp, along with 2 other coaches from the area who have a significant background in wrestling. And it's a 2-day camp starting Friday at 5 p.m. and going through Saturday till somewhere 6, 7 o'clock at night. You have any questions?
Did you get this? Did you get this in on time, sir?
I asked that question because I had a lengthy conversation with the individual who happens to be my brother, and so I talked to Shannon and said that since it's on the
It's
agenda,
a standing agenda item
Yeah.
that we have, so
Correct.
that we don't miss it.
I'm just giving him a hard time.
Okay.
I think his name is Melton.
That's good because I plan on giving somebody else a hard time.
How many years has this been going on?
The wrestling camp would be the 2nd year here.
So there's last year, then this will be number 2.
Yes,
Okay.
2.
Identical to what you did last year? Is that what we're doing?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the schedule, everything looks like the same as last year. Yes.
So let's have a motion before we have any further discussion. I kind of overstepped my bounds there. So is there a motion to approve this request?
I'll make a motion to approve the request of facility use.
Is there a second? Second, Deb? All right, motion made by Kevin and seconded by Deb. Is there any further discussion? Paul, anything else?
I'm just nervous because I feel that we have nothing in front of us, and this just came right now, and we're going to approve something that we have never seen.
Well, we have seen it, but we didn't see it this year. Shannon, can you give us any information, any more information than Nathaniel was able to give us?
It's a coach in the district, and so there are students that are coming to the camp, and so we generally, push these through because we know that they have ability to enter the building. And per our policy, we just asked for approval for the overnight part of it. Had this not been overnight, it wouldn't be coming to the board. It would just be a blanket approval from myself. So because of that overnight portion. And again, with Caleb having access to the building, he has the ability to get in and lock the doors and be the supervisor for the event.
Okay, so could you write a stern letter of suggestion that next year they put it, if they know they're having this in the summer, that they get it in January?
Certainly can do that.
Well, he will have a stern recommendation. I would say it is an incredible opportunity for those kids that want to wrestle. And for those who want it, I can give you a flyer which says everything that's on it if you want that, as the whole schedule, whatnot. But it gives them a significant opportunity to improve, and we had a very successful last year and look forward to potentially another very successful wrestling season this year. But it's a significant opportunity for kids.
Is it just our kids or other kids?
I believe there'll be some other kids around the area.
Okay.
Okay.
Mostly from here, though.
So we can count on both of you talking to Caleb and getting him in action a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 6-1. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item E, consider committee of the whole structure. Do we have a motion to consider the committee of the whole structure?
I'll make a motion to consider the committee of the whole structure.
Second.
And a second, all right. So I think it's Kevin and Deb, correct? Nope, Aaron? Who said-
Nathaniel.
Sorry, I missed him in the middle, Nathaniel, sorry.
Second.
Just came from my right side, I'll clean up my ears later. So now that we've had a motion and a second, we can now do some discussion. Paul, you explained it quite well earlier. Thank you.
Well, we discussed it last month. We discussed it at committee twice now. And I think there's nothing but a plus for this board to go with the committee as a whole. It would give an opportunity for us to sit down as a group, have these long discussions. It's an opportunity for our staff to do their presentations one time in front of everybody at a committee. It would be an opportunity for the committee as a whole meeting to be streamed live, so the public has the right to see what's going on in the committee levels. I see nothing but positive coming from us from this. There might be some growing pains as far as the structure, getting it set up and what to expect, but that can be worked out. There's other districts that are doing it and it's working out well. I think that the committee meetings would probably go much quicker, and I think our board meeting would actually go quicker because we're not going to have to go through those presentations all over again. Each time we do these presentations at the board level, it means that it's already been done once at the committee level. So 3 of us for sure are seeing it again. It would be a chance for us to streamline the board so that we can focus more on what we're doing, be more informed, and have a good discussion at the committee level, so that when we do come in front of the board as a board level, it would go quicker. We don't have to have this long discussion. It's already been taken care of as a group.
Right, so you suggested earlier in your report that it is suggested that we start in October and perhaps tweak some policies prior to that. Could we approve this, the committee of the whole structure, and do those things in the background then before it begins in October?
That's what the goal would be, yes.
That would be the goal, all right.
I think it's also worthy to note that these meetings will be Skyped, so it'll be a chance for the community to see the committee meetings before the board votes on them.
Live streamed?
And they'll be live streamed.
Okay.
And they will also have minutes taking at these meetings also.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I just thought of tonight that it would eliminate our board report portion of our board meeting.
Well, that's very nice. Yes, thank you.
Once
Erin.
for save time.
Good point. Any further discussion? Right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider the ESSA 2018-19 plan.
This one's not up to you. You want me to just pull it up? Can I do it?
Tab on the top.
Oh, tab. I mean, it's 3 really good slides. It'd be a shame. It's just called that.
ESSA.
That's not it.
Oh,
while it may get pulled up, I can give some background on it. The Every Student Succeeds Act is some background on it. The ESSA is a reauthorization of the 1965 Elementary and Secondary Education Act. It was passed in December of 2015. This is federal legislation. You probably know it better by the last initials that it had. The last reauthorization of it was in 2001 when it was called the No Child Left Behind Act. So this is the legislation that has replaced No Child Left Behind, NLCB, and now goes by the abbreviation ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act. The gist of ESSA is that it gives more control over to states into how schools account for student achievement, and particularly it looks for student achievement of disadvantaged students from 4 areas. That would be students who are in poverty, students who are not white, students who receive special education, and students with limited English language skills. So that's really the gist of the legislation, and there's a lot of, it encompasses quite a bit underneath it, including especially the different fundings from title programming. It touches a little bit on IDEA or some special ed funding. Really just kind of everything, all of the different ways that the district or any district would get funding from the federal government is a little bit underneath the umbrella of ESSA. To give a little bit of background to the process that we used for it, so I worked with a team that included Michelle Cobdy and Teresa Stanley and Callie Fiesel, Britta Dieger, Brett Dieger, and Brad Larrabee. So we had an assortment of people that had different kinds of different district level responsibilities. One of the challenges to the working on this ESSA plan was it was passed in December, or it was passed in 2015, but the rulemaking that's gone along with it has taken some time, and it's kind of changed, and the guidance of it has changed on the federal level a number of times, including when a new administration came in from the federal government, and then the state has changed some things too. So it's been, it was a pretty big process, even though the presentation tonight is going to be pretty short, because the gist of it is a lot of the things that the Act requires are basically things that we're doing in one fashion or another in the school district. So it was mostly a matter of organizing. That said, that team of, I think, 6 or 7 of us spent quite a bit of time and had, just to make sure that we were on the right track, we had Melissa Moe come in from CISA 11, a consultant who's the regional expert on ESSA, and Owen Shannon was part of it too. Hate to leave you out, Shannon. And she came in and we really walked through step by step over the course of really what amounted to several days to make sure that we were on the right track for that. So we think we have everything that we need for it. There's several dozen artifacts that we gathered and loads of narratives, but basically it boils down to, and this is the background that I shared already. It boils down to the fact that the second bullet there, a lot of the things that we're doing with the MLSS framework, which is the multi-level systems of support framework, that's something that Mitch Ham has talked to you about over the last couple of years, and is something that's consistent now in all the buildings. So a lot of the work that has been being done on the building level through that framework accounts for a lot of the work that we need to do for our title work, and a lot of it accounts for the work that we need to do for ESSA. So the good news is, while this was really huge and encompasses all kinds of things, as a team we were able to sit down, and a lot of our work ended up being organizational and kind of finding where it was we were doing all the things that this says that we need to do. So the good news is, as a school district, this didn't land on us as a big surprise of, oh my gosh, we need to change everything we do. It was mostly, we do these things, and this really kind of helped organize them and put them forward. And I suspect that if it stays consistent, next year will be significantly easier because the plan's in place. It can just be tweaked accordingly. Each building will continue to follow that framework in terms of goal setting and monitoring student academic achievement and student behaviors, and has some consistent questions and some protocols and procedures that we'll be doing at the building level, elementary, middle, and high. Along with that, something that we need to do and that we've been doing is tie in all the professional development that we do and that we pay for with Title II funding and tying that to our goals. That's already something that had been doing, so we'll continue to do that and monitor it. Something that was a change in it was some of the procedures for homeless students. And so there's been some proposed changes to procedures there. Again, not really a change in how we respond to them. We'll still continue to try to offer supports as immediately as possible and work with those families, but just some added structures and procedures that we added, which are good things to make sure that we're responding to families consistently and quickly when they're in those difficult situations. So one of the requirements, though, of the ESSA plan is to present it to school boards by, I believe it's June of this year, and to get any feedback from school boards about it, about the plan or questions or that kind of thing. So this is a chance to ask any questions you have.
No, I guess not. Thank you.
Can I ask one real quick? So are
yes,
you
there's a
looking for the board to adopt this plan, Mr. Stordahl?
I do not think that is necessary. It's totally necessary that the board adopt it. I know the board needs to hear about it, and it wouldn't be a bad idea just to adopt it to cover their bases. I should say a couple of the things. There's a whole lot of pieces of the legislation, and as Spooner, not a lot of it, not all of it applied to us. So there was a lot of technical things in terms of how you distribute money. If you have like 5 elementary schools and not all of them receive title funding, there's all kinds of things like that that really we could kind of cut out. So it was pretty straightforward for us. Not a lot of drastic changes. The real drastic changes come mostly to districts that are organized differently or larger than us. So it's not, again, it's kind of endorsing business as usual and how we've been doing things. So, and so we should adopt it. Is that right? Okay.
I'd like to say that it's encouraging that the structure of everything else fit into this. That's good to know that in the big picture, you're doing things that sort of connect the dots. And we went title through the high school this year, so that even means more so that it's a systematic approach to our entire district. And it's good that, I'm just happy to hear that it was somewhat seamless when you dug in.
And especially those targeted students that I read before, but students in poverty, students that are not white, students receive special education, students with limited English language skills, those would all be subgroups that we are looking at, that we were doing already. And again, this law, the idea is, part of it is to close that achievement gap that's happening nationwide, it's happening in the state, happening in our district, but that's something that as a district we were already doing through EduClimber. That helps facilitate it, but we already teachers look at that information at a teacher level, at a building level, to help problem solve for those areas. So yes, it was reaffirmation of what we've kind of said as our work that we need to be doing.
Good.
I will entertain a motion to consider or to approve the ESSA 2018-19 plan.
I'd like to make that motion at Luke's request.
That was my request. Thank you.
Paul has made the motion. Ann?
Second.
Second? Down there.
Second.
Nathaniel, you'll just see that. Okay, then I can't do that anymore tonight. Thank you. And now, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Luke, is that your last presentation for tonight?
That is.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Done.
Thank you for coming tonight and presenting, and for all your service. All right, continuing on, we're just about halfway through. Consider the second reading of employee handbook updates. I believe that we have seen these before. Well, I know we have because we did a first reading, and I think last time they were all read individually. Is that correct?
Yep.
I'm just wondering about, let's make a motion, first of all, to approve the second reading.
I make a move.
I'll second it.
All right, so I got it. Down there and down here. First and second.
Thank you, Paul.
So I just have one question, and I'm not sure who can answer that. I'm just wondering about the one that's not in the handbook, the maintaining security of the building. Is that one not in the handbook from before, and now it's going to be? Does anybody know that answer?
It was not in the handbook before, and now it will be.
It was not in the handbook before, and now it will be. Okay, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consider reimbursement for committee membership.
This was brought to the board in April, or I'm sorry, May, with the other certified staff and classified staff recommendations for updated in the handbook. It was tabled at that time. We talked about it at the Personnel Committee last month, just some clarification. So we're looking for approval tonight to approve those committee levels and then the aligning compensation that would go with them.
Correct. I did a little more study on this, and I went in and had a meeting, and I asked some questions, and I think it came from a committee that did a lot of study on it, and the people in the committee concurred. I make the motion that we consider reimbursement for committee membership as stated by the committee. Is there a second?
I will second that.
There's a second. Is there any discussion?
Well, I was a bit surprised last time that it was tabled based on that it was, I thought that the process was so well done and there was so much input at the ground level. It surprised me that we tabled it, and I'm glad that you...
I just needed a little more explanation.
I understand.
And so I got it, and I'm satisfied. So thank you.
And I also just wanted to say that I think that our staff does a lot, and we ask a lot of them, and that's why this piece was important, I thought, to show that we really do value your input and your opinion and your perspective. And that's why we ask you to be a part of these committees, so that we are making decisions that are well informed and from the mouth of the people that are actually going to be impacted. So we appreciate your service on those committees and the work that you do. And I think that this is a way to show that we really do value that input and perspective.
Thank you, Erin. Any other discussion or thoughts? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, item I, is to consider the high school math intervention proposal. We have all seen it, I believe. Is that correct? Can I have a motion to consider or to approve the high school math intervention proposal?
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, so we're ready for discussion. Is there any discussion?
This was just another it just keeps coming, and I'm so thankful for that, because it makes our job as board members so much easier when the process is well done. The information is all there that we need to know that you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, and I don't have any questions, and I think that makes it very easy on us. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider the administrator compensation model.
All right. So this is the third board-appointed task force to come to you in recent months. This is the administration compensation task force. And if you'll look at your material, the first piece we want to take a look at is administration compensation task force, and it's a narrative piece. So are you going to take these item by item as you did with the other recommendations?
I would like to take this item by item, yes.
Okay. So the first item is a change from two pieces that are currently in administrative contracts. One is that administrators can get tuition reimbursement up to $2,000 a year for completion of coursework that's been pre-approved by the board. The second piece would be attendance at seminars, conventions, meetings, and one important piece of it is the ability to attend a national convention every 2 years. So what the proposal is to meld those two pieces. The the $2,000 a year tuition reimbursement, and the idea that attending a national conference is about a $3,000 endeavor by the time all is said and done. So the proposed language would be the board reimburses the administrator for the amount up to $3,500 per year in reimbursement for tuition, professional development, seminars, conventions, and meetings. Tuition reimbursement shall be for completed coursework that the board has pre-approved. Board agrees to reimburse customary and reasonable expenses incurred while attending seminars, conventions, and meetings pursuant to board policy.
Is there a motion to accept this proposal for section E?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry. It is a roll call vote. A little bird over here on my shoulder indicated that I need to remember that sort of thing. So a roll call vote, please.
Erin Birch,
Yes.
Nathaniel Melton,
Yes.
Deb Olson,
Yes.
Robert Holman,
Yes.
Karen Thornton,
Yes.
Kevin King,
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries. 7-0. Section I.
Section I currently reads that 120 days written notice of resignation is required for the administrator, and if that standard is not met, then the administrator must pay a $1,000 breach of contract penalty as liquidated damages. The proposal is to move that time frame to 60 days.
And that is the only change in it, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, is there a motion to approve the proposed section I?
I'll make that motion.
You have that, Caitlin. Very good, one of those two. All right, and can we have a roll call vote, please? No, there's no roll call vote here. It's $1,000. All those, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. And just a second, if you would.
Sure.
Okay, I just want to look at something here. All right, the next item is section H. And is that what goes with these papers in front of me?
You have them in hard copy, you also have them in board docs.
Okay.
So, section... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to table section H, please. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to table section H. Board, the reason that I suggest this and I have that motion is because due to the fact that we have 3 new administrators coming in, I would like them to have an opportunity to look at this and to weigh in on this before we approve something for the people that haven't even gotten their feet yet with being an administrator. So that is the reason why I would like to table it. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda, as I move down here, is to consider, letter K, consider HVAC maintenance contract.
Per the information that you were provided in board docs, the maintenance contract went out for RFP in May. We received 3 proposals. The responses were comprehensive and did contain quite a bit of data. So we decided to work with CISA 10, and they condensed the information and provided a recommendation for the board as well as the administration. CISA 10 is recommending that the district award the maintenance contract to Jamar If you took a look at the accompanying paperwork, you'll see that Jamar's bid did come in at $25,080 higher than the lowest bid provided. However, for the 18-19 budget, it accommodated for a 10% increase, leaving the bid difference at $16,445. And I feel that within the Buildings and Grounds budget, we have enough money to cover that difference of $16,445. So it is the administrative team as well as the Buildings and Grounds staff, as well as CISA 10, recommending that we approve Jamar as the HVAC maintenance provider for 2018 through 2021.
Is there a motion to approve Jamar as HVAC maintenance provider for 2018 to 21?
Make that motion.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Aaron Birch,
Yes.
Nathaniel Melton.
Yes.
Deb Olson.
Yes.
Robert Holland.
Yes.
Karen Sorensen.
Yes.
Kevin King.
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to consider funding the elementary CLC program for 2018-19.
As Mr. Holland mentioned in his budget or committee report that unfortunately the elementary school was not funded for the CLC program next year in the amount of $100,000. So the administration along with the CLC team is asking that the board approve a one-time dip into fund balance for $75,000 to cover the cost for next year. And we have Karen and her team here tonight to give a brief presentation of the CLC program for the board and the community.
Thank you. Karen? It's yours.
I'd also like, do you hear me? I also would like to let you know that we also have one of our community partners here tonight, Lakeland Family Resource Center, available for questions as well. The first thing we're going to do is play our presentation, our iMovie. And I know Amber's here, and she's our technology guru with iMovies. So thank you, Amber. And Amber LaRue is our grant administrative assistant with the CLC grants.
Who set this up? Because it says there's not access to it.
Sure, access for those.
I did. Not you. You didn't ask for it. I'm sure it was Ben and Caitlin. Or you could just, we can come back to that at the end while I work on that. Just give me this second.
Since pictures state more than words, that's why we had the iMovie. So we did a survey when we were rewriting our 21st Century Grant for another 5-year term, and this is part of the survey that we wanted to share with you. And the question is there a need for programming in our district? And if you'll notice, this is a chart from that survey, and it states very heavily that, yes, 96.2% of our families are very agreeable to, they do want to continue to see programming in our district. And the red portion there is only 3.8% are saying maybe. So that is the chart that stands out. Right, this school year, we served 140 different students. Our average daily attendance was 55 students throughout the 4 days of each week that we served, Monday through Thursday. And our biggest night was at 70 students per night. And then also, our district at the elementary school building, we have 389 students at the elementary school. DPI likes to see at least 20% of the student body participating in after-school programming, and we achieve that at our district at the elementary level. So what you are seeing here, put my page as well, the recommendation we talked about with administration is that we apply for the grant again this coming school year. I like how Dr. Aslan said, regroup, rearm, rewrite. That has become our mantra. We would like to keep programming as similar as possible this coming year by the recommendation that Shannon stated at a $75,000 level. We would simplify a bit. Some of the changes would be in the areas of what do we need to do specifically for the grant that we would not continue to do. So things like we would cut some of the staff. Possibly these are the options being looked at. We would cut training dollars for staff, lesson planning time that helped to raise the quality according to the CLC standards. Some of the residency experiences that we could only do with the CLC grant funding, and possibly some of the family events. Also moving transportation into the middle school grant that we will continue for the next 4 years. We're in year 1 currently at the middle school level. So those would be some of the minor suggestions that we've been looking at with our administration. And one of the big things we just really hope that our district considers is that all families need consistency, and especially our working families, they need consistent care for the children. This right here is a picture of a student at the end of the school year. We asked students to let us know what's something you really love about High Five after school program at the elementary school. And one of the students said it very well. They said High Five is the best because they are like family. So in order to help cut the programming by the suggested $25,000, one of the suggestions made was, could community partners come forth and help us in our programming? We worked with the library here in Spooner Memorial Library, Lakeland Family Resource Center, on Friday nights doing a pilot program. It was called Flash. And so we asked them, and they really felt that it was a very successful program. It did have smaller numbers than our other nights by quite a bit, but it was begun in the middle of the school year, which we really feel that would be changed if we had gotten that information out in the earlier part of the school year. So could the partnership extend to one night of the week, so say Wednesday night? Currently Wednesday night is about 40 students per night. It is considered the church night in the area, and so it would be a nice night for partners to come in and work with the students. They have smaller staff than we've had through the grant, and the possibility of working with the children and also helping their own programming, getting the word out in the community. Another option would be to recruit volunteers. One of the grants we're looking at right now is another AmeriCorps program that involves after-school programming. It would wrap support around at least at a minimum of 15 families at a minimum of 12 weeks, and then that would be day school and after school. And that member would be trained as a case management member. And we do have our Lakeland Family Resource Center team here if you had any questions for them. And that, I believe, our final, and I can bring it back to them as well. Our final section, we provided you with some statements as testimonials from our surveys. We sent out more surveys when we found out we did not receive the grant. We surveyed district staff and we just surveyed families. And you had received a set of, or the committee had received a set of testimonials. This one here is from a parent, and another one is from the interventionist in our district, both stating why programming has been helping their families and helping our children. Specifically, the elementary CLC grant works in cooperation with Title I funding and with our day school staff tremendously. That's the biggest thing CLC programming brought. So do you think our iMovie will work? Actually, that was a great way to wrap up what we wanted to state. If you had questions for our Lakeland Family Resource Center team, feel free to ask me as well. Or for our CLC team.
Any questions? I think we don't know what to ask, at this point, but we need to make a motion here. Thank you, Karen, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I do have one question. Are you open to additional programming for a Wednesday night in addition to a Friday night, if that were something that, yes, you guys have?
Yeah, we've all talked about it. We haven't talked about an exact date, what day of the week yet. We know that we do want to continue the flash on Fridays at some level.
Renee, would you come to the microphone so the people that are at home can hear you? Thank you. Thanks.
So I'm Renee Lowell with Lakeland Family Resource Center, so I'm the director here at Lakeland. So what we really want to create is a spot where a safe place for kids to go. And looking at them losing their grant and how can we help. And what we've decided is that we could take a day and take what we used as our flash and promote it through that day. So we're kind of looking at it more as like the socio-emotional, the learn by play. Kids can just kind of come in, relax, have a good time. So with that, we want to take that flash and put it onto a day dinner, which that would include smaller groups. We want to see like 4th graders to kindergartners, all in one group. So we have a small group. And what we learned at that flash is that they really connect. And to see the older kids teaching the younger kids, those kind of things, they really grew. And so we really feel that is important. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there an emotion? Yeah, there's an emotion, all right. Is there a motion to consider funding the elementary CLC program for 2018-19 at the level of $75,000? Is that correct?
Yep, district funding of $75,000.
But of course, Karen's going to do a little work and find some other funding and make that part less for us. Is that correct?
In a couple months. I can try.
All right, very good. I'm sorry. So is there a motion for that?
Can I ask one question?
Let's get a motion and then you can ask a question.
I'll make a motion that we...
Thank you. The motion has been made by Aaron.
I'll second.
And a second. Now, any discussion or questions?
Thank you. This is a one-year commitment to be revisited after this year.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, correct.
Can I ask?
Oh, certainly.
Our grant was for $75,000.
No, it was our former grant?
Yes.
$100,000, is that correct?
5 years at $100,000 each year.
Okay. So you're proposing to drop it to 75, but we're also going to be eliminating one day?
So we would definitely
one day or not?
We feel that it would be very important to continue to keep a site assistant at the site, even on a day that we would bring forth a set of community partners, because that would be what's best for children, that consistency, and we would be able to continue to connect it to day school so that both the children are successful and the community partners are successful. But otherwise, yes, community partners would provide that evening with a site assistant.
We know that's going to happen for sure.
That's one of the suggestions we've been looking at.
My concern is, what if they don't? Are we still going to see them? My thought is, we have nothing for sure that they will,
right.
And we're talking about reducing 25% of it, with the hopes of that happening.
Correct.
But we're not willing to stand up and commit to cutting that day to start with.
We would have to cut that day. If the community partners didn't want to take that day on,
That's what I needed to hear.
A day would have to be cut out of the program.
I needed to hear that.
I understand. I apologize.
And then the other thing I'm going to ask would be, is this the program we bought the new van for last summer? The after-school program? Is this?
We still have the middle school grant. And we were just renewed at the middle school grant for this is the first year of 5 years at 115,000.
115,000.
100,000, and we utilize those vans for both programs.
Okay.
Yep.
And
So-
I heard Karen say that they were going to transfer the busing over to the middle school program.
Yep. We have to-
That's one of the suggestions we're looking at. I don't believe the district purchased any vans that we're using in the after-school setting. We've been leasing those through the grant.
Yep, they have to be leased.
And I believe one has already been paid for.
The other thought would be on the day that we're not doing it, that we're turning it over to the other group. Are we responsible for transportation of those students on that day, even though we're not doing it? Is that our responsibility?
So we know we would be transporting middle school students, for sure. That's definitely things we have to talk about and things to work out.
We already have to transport the middle school students on that night because we wouldn't drop programming at that location. So to transport any elementary students that we would have there would be no extra burden because we would already be paying the staff members to drive those vehicles to transport middle school students. So yes, we would be transporting the elementary students.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one question. So the night that you would be doing the community, so you're getting rid of the Friday then, or are you trying to keep that also? Or is that going to be in addition, or just not doing Friday and doing Wednesday?
While she's coming up, my understanding is they would like to move Friday programming possibly to their own sites.
Yes. Yeah. Where we would take Fridays and have them bused either to Lakeland or the library, depending on age groups, and running our programming through there.
On that Friday?
On Fridays, yep.
Through Badger Bus, not through our transportation.
And I would like to say that the value and the importance of this program, I have no questions about. I mean, I see it every single day you just do. There are many families that rely on this service and the people that are involved in their children's lives and the growth and positive things that come out of this program. You've done amazing things, and so I thank you for all of your work there. I think that none of us really question the need and the value of it. It's just the financial piece. So just so that you're aware of that, and thank you for all the work you do.
If we're going to change locations, and I'm looking at the average daily attendance is 55 students, we are going to pay for another bus route for an entire bus for 55 students. I can't see multiple buses going and dropping students off at the library. We're going to have to work it out with Badger Bus to have one complete bus just for this service.
Yeah.
That hasn't been addressed.
No, it had. We had it arranged when we piloted the program, but we didn't have a lot of kids sign up for it. So then we decided that we would have it moved to the school to try it there to see if we could get some more kids and just getting our name out and kids familiar and parents familiar with us. So it was something that, was a pilot program. So.
And I don't think it would be a new route. We have an in-town route, and the library falls within that in-town route. So if
55 students.
But that's the average daily attendance for the program when it's at the elementary school. They layered in the Flash program on Friday nights, and the attendance for the Flash program was not nearly
there maybe 10
there. So yep.
I would foresee, personally, I mean, if our partners take on Wednesday nights, and we talk specifically with the library and with Lakeland, because in the time that we had to talk about it, between finding out we were not going to be renewed for this next cycle, starting next year, and the time that we were able to gather our community partners, those were the two that said, yep, I'll be there let's talk. I would foresee seeing approximately, 30 to 40 students participating easily if it were a Wednesday night. I would say that has been consistent in the last 10 years that I've been here, for being your AmeriCorps member through to this CLC grant. Wednesday nights are approximately 30 to 40 students. So, I mean, but who knows? They could knock our socks off and those numbers could go up. Wednesday night is in our community considered church night. And so a lot of, families are not participating in programming because they're conserving their energy for the evening activities at church. And there is one church in the area that has it right after school for the younger children, which our programming is very large at the elementary school.
I think it's difficult to know more firm numbers at this time. This is a best estimate that we can make. And, if approved by the board, we'd have a better sense once things got started in the fall.
And we're approving just the $75,000. We understand that we have to back into that and fit the programming into the $75,000. It's, we'll have to work around it. If we have to modify how it looks even more, we will do that in the upcoming months.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. A roll call vote, please.
Erin Birch.
Yes.
Nathaniel Milton.
Yes. Yes.
Deb Olson.
Yes.
Robert Holman.
Yes.
Karen Sorensen.
Yes.
Kevin King.
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Karen and Renee. The next item on the agenda is item N, which is, M, which is to consider establishing a Fund 46 Long-Term Capital Improvement Trust Fund.
As Mr. Holland mentioned, this was presented at the Buildings and Grounds and Budget Committee. In the simplest form, it is essentially in a savings account for the district that once we, if the board approves it, and once we deposit an amount, it could be an amount from $5 to $100,000, it starts a time frame of 5 years, and we as a district cannot touch that money for 5 years. However, at the end of that time period, we are allowed to use it on any long-term capital projects that we have in the plan that we submit to DPI.
Okay. Is there a motion to establish a Fund 46?
I make a motion that we establish Fund 46.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion or questions? Shannon, I do have one question here. It says that if we do this, that we need to have a board resolution to establish a trust.
You have the resolution ready for your signature. It's a standard resolution that just outlines that it's a Fund 46. We're adhering to DPI guidelines, etc.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I believe this should be a roll call vote because it could be more than the given amount.
Erin Birch.
Can I? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. The plan, the capital improvement plan, is that our facility study that we did?
Yep.
Okay.
This is the one that was provided by CISA 10.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's continue with that roll call vote.
Erin Birch.
Yes.
Nathaniel Milton.
Yes.
Deb Olson.
Yes.
Robert Holman.
Yes.
Karen Sorensen.
Yes.
Kevin King.
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to consider the activity account rollover.
Yep, so the next 3 items on the agenda are just housekeeping items that we have to take care of in June. Activity account rollover is the same procedure it has been in the past years. What you have before you is a listing of all the accounts that are in good standing and then the select few accounts that are not in good standing. With those accounts, there's a brief explanation of how they possibly could get into good standing or why they're not. And we're just looking for approval tonight to roll these accounts forward for 18-19.
All right, so that we can have a discussion, I need a motion to consider activity account rollover.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Shannon, is there anything on there that you think should be pointed out at all? No?
You want to talk about the organ fund? Is that what you want to
the
talk
organ
about?
fund? Anybody want to talk about the organ fund?
I don't really want to talk about the organ fund, but
No, we'll just not bring that up at this point. Thank you. I'm just wondering, so the balances are here. Are there any outstanding bills on any of these? For example, the top one, it happens to be the elementary activity fund. So that's what it is at this point. We're not going to see a change in this?
well, they're very fluid. So, you could see a change. We cut checks, I believe, every other Thursday. That could change. It could have changed by the time this information is old as of last week, so it could have changed. Now, mind you that if it's a negative on here, it's a positive to the account. So
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. I did figure that out after a couple of years. Thank you. All right,
Have we
is
had
it-
any movement on the organ? Yeah, we've cut it in about half. So in reviewing last year's, I think it was close to 16 or 17,000. So that's good. Yep. We would probably next year consider talking about writing this off if we have not received enough donations to cover the rest of it.
Bring in those monies for the organ fund. Thank you. Donate, donate, donate. So we've had a discussion. Is there any more discussion? There being, seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to consider funds transfer approval.
Every year, we are required to transfer funds to Fund 27, which is a special education fund. It's called a self-balancing fund. So anytime that it's a negative amount, Fund 10 is required to cover that. Therefore, this year, we are also going to see a transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 50 because we had budgeted more expenses than revenues in that account. So we are just looking for board approval to make those funds at the approximate budgeted amount. Fund 50 is $68,121, and the transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27 is approximately $1.4 million.
Okay, well, I'm looking for a motion to approve the fund transfer request as requested by the business office.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, a motion has been made and seconded. Are there any questions or any discussion? Hearing none? This is just not a roll call vote, is that correct? Because it's the money staying in our district.
Yeah,
Right? Okay, very good. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item P, consider the 2018-19 leases.
This is just to notify the board of any leases that we are looking to enter into for the 18-19 school year. And at this point, we have one lease that we are looking into, and that is with Dell, Mr. Miller, Dell, to lease some Chromebooks for 18-19.
3-year lease with
Thank you.
option to buy.
Yep.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to consider any leases that we will. Is this any leases or is this the particular lease?
This is the only lease that
The
we will
only
be entering
lease.
into for 18-19.
Okay, very good, thank you. So to consider the lease with Dell for the 18-19 school year.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other questions? Or any at all? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item Q, consider the school board support for Public Service Commission grant for community broadband. Mr. Miller?
Okay, as Mr. Hohen alluded to earlier in his committee report, a couple weeks ago I talked to the Buildings and Grounds Committee about the idea of a Public Service Commission grant to provide better broadband access for rural areas around Washington County. Since that time, a number of things have come up, and this is kind of a fluid situation, I guess is the way I'll put it. So I'm going to share some information here before asking you guys to consider a resolution for a potential grant. So first of all, I'll just start off with just a brief overview of what the Wisconsin PSC or Public Service Commission broadband expansion grants are. The legislature with Governor Walker approved roughly $7 million for broadband expansion across the state. They've had 2 rounds of those grants so far, with a 3rd grant that is coming up here rather soon. Basically, to be part of one of these grants, it's a combination of public and private sector, so somebody that is a broadband provider, along with public sector entities like your city, county, schools, not-for-profits, partnering together to bring some type of system in that will increase broadband where it's either non-existent or not what is considered adequate broadband for people to use. The way the grants are run is it's a cash or in-kind contribution match where the state then matches funds that the consortium that's writing the grant comes up for to award those grants. And the other big item here is that the grant deadline for this upcoming grant is July 16th. In other words, rapidly approaching. So that being said, Now I'm getting ahead of myself here. A week and a half ago, they announced a second round of grants. And as part of that, to the south of us, Chippewa County, who is a member of the same consortium that shares our broadband infrastructure that Spooner and Washburn County use, was awarded a grant with Packerland Broadband, which is also one of the vendors that we have been talking to about trying to partner for some kind of a grant collaboration. They received $210,000 to basically provide wireless broadband access out into rural areas of that community and into some economic areas where they want to develop things. Through that, they had a big press conference to which we were invited to attend. So I went down there. It was an opportunity to meet with the Public Service Commission, Governor Walker, members of this grant, including Packerland Broadband and Chippewa County. Through that, there was one slide that the governor, when he gave his little talk, threw up that kind of struck with me, and that is, if you look at this map, it doesn't show up the greatest here with the lights, but the dark blue is where they awarded the grants in the state of Wisconsin. So this has been over several rounds. This is an older slide, but the concept's the same. If you look at Washburn County, nothing has been awarded in this county, and even around the surrounding counties, it's not anywhere close to us. So the goal here is to try and write a grant or apply for a grant so that we can put Washburn County in the dark blue on that map in Wisconsin's next round of grants. With that being said, I was able to meet with members of Packerland Broadband, that's the company that was awarded this grant with Chippewa County. They are interested in working with us, and through those conversations, they actually came here last Tuesday. So this was a week ago Monday that we had met with the governor and all those people, but on Tuesday they're up here. We took a look, and what we originally had been talking about doing was this idea of building a tower or something like that on the high ground behind the elementary and the high school here. When we went up and actually looked at it and looked at that rather large hill just off to the west here, basically what my contact at Packerland said was that we'd have to build a very tall, expensive tower to be able to clear the hills around Spooner to be able to deliver signal net. So we said a better alternative is to choose the idea of using a tower on our property as a last resort, but try to find towers that you can lease space off of to do the same thing. And so we went and we looked at who owns all the various towers around the county, came up with a couple that they have worked with that own these towers in terms of leasing space. So what came of that was the idea of a concept to build it's called fixed wireless. In other words, you provide wireless that is fixed from a point off of that tower, wherever you're hanging your equipment, to my house or my business or my school or wherever for it. Then you have basically your internet access, same as you would if you were plugged in, through a DSL connection, fiber, whatever. The private sector partnership of this potentially comes from Packerland Broadband now, because they have an interest in knowing there are towers that they might be able to secure. They know that there is a substantial residency or rural residents around the surrounding areas of western part of this county and central part of Washburn County. Packerland is an interesting partner to work with because they have been awarded several grants to do this exact same thing that they're doing in Marinette, Eau Claire County, Chippewa County now. And they've been very good at it to the point where Microsoft has a rather huge project to provide broadband to rural America. They are one of 12 companies that have received a Microsoft Whitespace grant to utilize basically TV airwaves to provide internet broadband to rural areas of the United States and that. So they have the experience, they've been doing it, they have a solution that works, and they have the experience to basically install and support that. So that being said, potential collaboration for this grant is partners that I've been working with, basically the county, Spooner Health System, City of Spooner, and the school district to partner together to try and write a grant now. And what comes of that is when we went around and looked at the county, so here's a map of the county which shows up really great on that screen, but there are a couple of towers that if we can gain access to them to be able to rent space, to hang equipment, and that would allow you to serve the area off to the west and the north here around the City of Spooner. And then further up north of Trigo in that area, so from like Trigo kind of north there, so getting a large central part of the county and the western part of the county as a start. And then from there, the idea is you acquire more towers, either through leasing or building, and you keep growing this out. The reason I say this as you start is because 2 years ago, I heard this same spiel about wireless, fixed wireless solutions and that down to Eau Claire County when they had this grant. Basically, at the time was we were awarded the grant, we have it up and running, now we have to get people to subscribe and do it. That was 2 years ago. During these meetings I had with them last week, they said they are adding more equipment to their towers down in Eau Claire because they have sold it, maxed out the usage, because once the word is out, people subscribe because it works. They get the speed that they want to be able to have the broadband they need, which is around 25 meg. It's not fiber, but for what most people do or want to do, it meets the need for now. And as things evolve over time, then you look to upgrade and move on from there. So basically what I'm coming back to is there's a lot of work to be done for between myself and some of my counterparts in Packland Broadband. First of which is to acquire access to the towers, and that is something that Packland Broadband is looking into. The second is to conduct a feasibility study, just make sure before we ask for all this money that's actually going to work. And so basically they have tools in the company they work with that will look at the heights of where they would be in the various areas of the county and say, yeah, based on this technology, it will reach out so far, and we know based on the maps that the county has provided, there's all these people that live here, and there's enough people to serve to make it worth the while from a business model. Once that piece is done, and they are working on that right now, I'm hoping to hear the next day or two, so we can move forward with that, is to write the grant. Part of that is looking for those in-kind contributions, which from the school district perspective has changed slightly in that we're not necessarily looking for a chunk of land, but what we are looking, when we went and looked at other grants have been wide, is a cash contribution, and I'll get to that in a second, along with the ability to say that if they decide to cross school property, so like let's just say maybe they're going to use a tower behind the school here, they want to get from here across our property, we might waive access or waive fees for them to gain easement to go across our property to get to the tower to connect their fiber net. So it's those in-kind contributions from members of the grant consortium, the letters of support saying we're behind this, we support this as a district, a county, city, whoever, and then write the actual grant. So that being said, what you included hopefully in your packet is basically a draft of a kind of a letter of support from the board or resolution. I'm sorry, let me get ahead of myself. If you buy into this or want to support this, basically what it provides us with is a successful grant is an opportunity for residents of Spooner Area School District to have affordable access. Many of those residents are parents of students that then have affordable access to be able to use their devices that we provide through the school or they use themselves to be able to do what we want them to do as far as school. It also provides infrastructure for us to partner with this company, Packerland, to, right now, the state gives us money. You probably read about in press releases in the paper, we got $51,000 to spend on devices or infrastructure, but we can't spend it on the actual broadband, the internet service you pay that monthly bill for. Packerland, is partnered with and would partner with us to either substantially reduce or provide internet access to those students or those families that truly can't afford it. So we then build a partnership going forward where we provide the student their Chromebook. We already do that. Now we give them a device, allows them to hook that Chromebook up that they either pay very little to use or maybe nothing to be able to get internet where they live at home or something along those lines. And we set this up in a way so that the kid uses it to do their homework, all those wonderful activities and things like that, but they're not going to be sitting there watching their Netflix or things like that. For the families that can afford that kind of thing as a luxury, they can subscribe as a customer and do that kind of thing. Anyway, the last piece here, and it's the important one, is it promotes economic development across the county. When you have economic development, you have development in terms of people moving here, good jobs, people moving into the county, students in our schools, tax base for the schools, all this good information, things that help us address problems Spooner has. So all that being said, the resolution basically just reads, the Spooner Area School District Board of Education supports collaboration with Packerland Broadband, Washburn County, City of Spooner, and Spooner Health System to apply for a Wisconsin Public Service Commission grant to expand broadband access in rural areas of Washburn County. In support of this project, the Board of Education approves a contribution of $2,000 and fee waivers to a qualifying grant project in the county if a Public Service Commission approves a grant application. $2,000 number that I came up with is typical of what I saw for contributions for other public sector entities that have had successful grants. And that's something that we would pay out over the next couple of years, so it's not just this year. And that's only if you receive a grant. The second piece of that is if there was some need to go across school property somewhere in the district, we would look at waiving fees that you might charge for granting an easement or something like that. So what we're asking you tonight is to consider this. There are a lot of things that potentially might hang this up in terms of other partners participating with us, whether or not we can get access to ours. It's a lot of stuff to go, but if something falls apart, the worst that happens is you made a resolution, then we come back the next round and we address those problems and we try again. So that being said, do you have questions or need more information?
Let's have a motion to support the Public Service Commission grant for community broadband.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, any questions?
Are all these other partners on board with us?
They're kind of doing the same thing. This July is a very interesting time to bring people together to have meetings and that, so that may or may not happen. There is a unique, I don't want to say a clause in this grant, but there's a comment period that allows them to get on board after the fact if they didn't. So let's say the city or somebody didn't want to or couldn't get a meeting together to get something like this to come together. They can submit a letter after, and I've seen that happen with other grants I've looked at. We have talked initially, and everybody is in favor of this. Now it's a matter of going back and just getting that initial commitment. We're also waiting on Packerland to come back and say, yes, they are definitely going to partner with us because they know that they can actually do it. Like I said, there are things that might fall apart on this, and there's a lot of uphill battles to fight here. But I also know this is the last chance for this year to write one of these grants, to apply for it. It's probably likely that the state will do more in the future, but every time you wait a cycle is another 6 months you wait before you can start something. This is already, you're talking a year to 2 years out before you have something actually in place ready to start using, depending on how it goes. So basically I'm asking for you is to make a commitment that if we pull this together that you'll support it. If it doesn't, then we will come back to you at some point in the future with finding some way to address this problem here.
Would the resolution perhaps then have different partners with it? Would that be a possibility, or you said you've already talked to these partners?
These are the partners, the public sector entities in Washburn County right now that have met regularly on this topic and have voiced support. I know that we'd also be working with our Economic Development Corporation to get letter support from the private sector around here, the community. But the public sector entities that might contribute to this would be these organizations. Now, one of them or all of them may decide not to, and it could very well fall apart. I'm hoping that they'll all be on board. They all have good reasons to gain from it, just like we do in that. So, but as Dr. Aslan talked, this is a tough time of year to get people together and make things happen. And not having a local telco that's been in Washburn County like they have around us, or in all these other counties we're in dark blue, makes it a lot tougher to find somebody to come in here that wants to make an investment in the county because they already don't have infrastructure here. And that's our big hurdle that we've been trying to clear.
Thank you. Any other questions? I believe this has to be a regular vote, correct? $2,000? Correct? Okay. Aaron, anything else?
Thanks for checking.
All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Sorry, Aaron.
You're good.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to consider years of service reconciliation.
When we were putting together the compensation models, it was brought to our attention that there is some staff that we currently have in the district that were served involuntary layoffs years ago, and it was requested by one of those staff members that the board consider honoring those years in which they were involuntarily laid off. At this point, we have only audited the classified staff, so our paraprofessionals, our food service, and we have one staff member who would qualify. So we are just asking the board if they would honor that request and give them those years of involuntary layoffs. And once we audit the certified staff, we will come back and provide more information for that group.
Do you think there are any in the certified staff? I mean, just off the top of your head, or you just can't say at this point? You need to look at that?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Is there a motion to consider years of service reconciliation?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second to consider years of service reconciliation. Is this just a matter, Shannon, of someone going up on the pay scale for years,
Over.
like,
So,
over, okay.
Yep, so they would go over. In this instance, it's one person, and it was 2 years that they were involuntarily laid off before they were called back. Of course, this all happened before Act 10, when those types of union contracts were in place. So it would be any staff member that had been that has been in the district for that long.
Okay, all right, very good. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is you again, Shannon, I believe, consider increase for district substitute teacher pay.
So when we were looking at the compensation models, a concern of the certified staff was the amount that we currently pay our substitutes and the need to increase it in order to stay competitive with our neighbors. And so we are asking the board to consider increasing the district substitute pay to $110.
Is there a motion to increase the district substitute teacher pay to $110?
I make that motion.
Second.
And there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The last item before we convene into closed session is to consider the first reading of Board Policy 5530.
This is the policy that I talked about from the policy committee. It's just the drug prevention policy, 5530. It's pretty much just definitions of what drugs are is what we recognize as defined for our district, for our policy. This is in addition to our current policies.
So this comes after a DPI visit this school year where they had identified a deficiency that we did not have a policy of this nature on the books. So this is the template that Neola has provided the district.
And it would include all A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, correct? Just, they weren't, so it'd be, it would be all those drugs, correct?
Yes.
Drugs means this. And what about that first item, as the educational institution of this community, the school should strive? Is that included in this policy also? Paul, do you know?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, is there a motion to approve the first reading of Board Policy 5530?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Good, glad to hear they were going to meet the needs of the DPI. And we've been looked at, and that's wonderful. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985, Parent 1, Parent C, to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. And the item we're going to discuss is administrator negotiations. In order to go into closed session, we need to have a roll call vote. Oh, we need a motion first. Thank you very much. I always do that. A motion to go and convene into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second.
Aaron Church.
Yes.
Daniel Dalton.
Yes.
Yes.
Robert Ryan.
Yes.
Karen Sorensen.
Yes.
Kevin King.
Yes.
Yes.
We are now going to convene in closed session. Is that yours?
No.
Is this yours? Oh, it's mine. There's that blue paper. Did you get the pictures from Paul the other day? The things that you wanted? Okay, very good. Anything I need to sign?
Yes. The board met in closed session, and the first item of action was reference to employee Hugh Miller. The board unanimously approved to maintain the current salary and number of consecutive days for Hugh Miller. I'm sorry, let's start at the beginning. It should be part of an administrator contract. Move him to an administrator contract, number one. To maintain current salary and number of contracted days at 225. Increase PTO days from 8 to 15. This would be proportional to the number of PTO days given to building administrators. Retain the cumulative sick leave at 88.5 days. And to maintain current retirement benefits, period. That was unanimously approved. The second item was for employee Shannon Grindell. The board unanimously approved to change the title for Shannon to Director of Operations. The board also approved with that was to increase the salary to $100,000 spread over 2 years, $8,000 in the year of 18-19 and $8,000 in the year 19-20. That is the end of the board's actions in closed session.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
All right, there's a motion to adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Meeting's closed at